But we've been talking about Randall. We talked about that roster as well, too. Somebody else is going to be joining him on that roster because he has a roster spot is going to be the Knicks' second-round pick in this year's draft, Tyler Kolek. And thanks to Fred Katz of The Athletic, we actually have some new details on Tyler Kolek and his role for next season. But unfortunately, it's likely he's not going to be playing heavy minutes for New York headed into next year. But is this a surprise to anybody? Is this a surprise to anybody who's watching, anybody in the chat? It's certainly not a surprise to me because when you think about the Knicks and you think about rookies, you don't think about them playing heavy minutes, but you worry about them playing any minutes. You want them to do something, especially Kolek, given the summer league he had and the play that he was doing and the fact that his playmaking was just on another level. And every time you see somebody playmaking at that level, doing what he's doing like that, you want to see him carve out a little playing time. If you were hoping for that, just like I was, it's unfortunate because Fred Katz basically pops that bubble when he gives us the following information about Kolek and his role for next season. Again, not a shock, but just more of a clarification. According to Katz, he states, if Kolek cracks the rotation, it's because he ripped the spot away from someone else, not because the Knicks gave him one. This team doesn't go into seasons planning to include rookies in its rotation. Even Emmanuel Quickley, who was a regular during his first NBA season, wasn't supposed to play much at the time the Knicks drafted him, but quickly balled out during training camp and preseason. Head coach Tom Thibodeau grew impressed, and the cocky young guard snagged what was once Austin Rivers' spot in the lineup. Kolek could do the same, though the hill is steeper for him than it was for Quickley. He'll have to prove he can stay in front of NBA point guards, which he struggled with at Summer League, when he also proved to be one of the best passers in Las Vegas. This is not the same roster Quickley had to fight through either, though. So that's something we have to talk about here. Even though Emmanuel Quickley was able to do that and carve out a spot for himself, look at the roster Quickley was on. It was in no way a championship roster. The roster that Kolek is on is championship level. Good and bad things come from that. The good part of that is he's going to be learning on a championship level team, championship level environment. That's going to do wonders for his development. But when you play for that type of team with that level of talent, you're going to have to make some sacrifices. And as a rookie, you're likely going to have to sacrifice your playing time because there are just better players on the roster than you are. But if you can do what Quickley did, and you can beat all of these other players in training camp and prove that you are a top player, then maybe you can carve out a role for yourself on the team next season. The chances of that happening, though, in my opinion, are not that high. Not saying Kolek can't do it. I think Kolek can. I just think the level of players we have on this team are just so much better now. We got to remember, this year in training camp, we're starting with OG and Mikal Bridges. Okay? We're starting with those two. We didn't have those two last year. Now we have those two. The bench is comprised of Dante, Josh Hart, and Deuce McBride. To an extent, Preston Achua, maybe whoever that backup big the Knicks signed with that MLE as well too. So the competition in terms of minutes is going to be fierce. And even if there's another spot available, does that mean Kolek is going to get it? Is Kolek going to be the one the minutes go to? Well, if you're talking to Fred Katz, it may not be the case, even though Ian Bagley did report a few weeks ago that in the pecking order, it would seem that Kolek is in front of Cam Payne. If you're asking Fred Katz and maybe even Tom Thibodeau, if push comes to shove and you need somebody else to play, is it going to be based off of who's in the pecking order or experience? Fred Katz imagines it's going to be based off experience. According to Katz, I imagine Kolek sits at the end of the bench for most of the season. Eventually, he will receive a chance. Thibodeau is a massive fan and was pushing for the Knicks to draft him. Now, that's very important. We have to mention that again. If everybody thought that he's not a Tom Thibodeau guy, Tom Thibodeau's never going to want to play him, doesn't play any defense. Well, we just learned that's not the case because according to Fred Katz, he is a Thibodeau guy. Thibodeau pushed the Knicks to sign him. Let's go through that again. Eventually, he will receive a chance, according to Fred Katz. Thibodeau is a massive fan and was pushing for the Knicks to draft him. But similar to McBride, who the Knicks drafted in the second round a few years ago before he finally became a regular in 2024, that chance may not come for a bit. Brunson is at the top of the mountain. McBride wasn't just a breakout contributor last season. He's also still young and the same age, 23, as Kolek. Cam Payne is a veteran who is one of the league's most competent third string point guards. The Knicks don't sign him if they consider tossing Kolek into the deep end. So that is something worth noting. He gave flowers to every single guard the Knicks had to offer there with good reason. He didn't just do that because he wanted to. He did that because he had to. What part of what he said was a lie? What part of what he said wasn't true? I'm a big fan of Kolek. I think everybody of this channel who's watched this channel for a long time or been a long time subscriber, you guys know I have been pushing for the Knicks to give this kid minutes. I want to see him get minutes. That's a want. But if you ask me realistically, what do I expect? I don't expect Kolek to get many minutes. Even if he did get minutes, it would likely be during a blowout game, garbage time, something like that. Or if you were dealing with a number of injuries, maybe he would play, but it would have to be a situation like that. I hate to say it, but Kolek would be a situational player for the Knicks. If anything, he wouldn't be a consistent player right now. That's not a bad thing, although I do want to see him play some minutes during this season. Selfishly, I do want to see that, but I don't expect it though. What I do expect is Miles McBride to have another amazing year off the bench. What I do expect is Dante DiVincenzo to be in the conversation for Sixth Man of the Year. What I do expect is the Knicks starting lineup to be a death lineup for anybody who we're going to be facing, and for our bench to be similar to a starting lineup. So that means any opposing bench will never be able to go against us. What I'm trying to say is that even though Kolek, who's a fan favorite, who I want to see get minutes, is likely not going to get minutes, guess who in New York is going to be mad about that? Guess who in this chat who's watching is going to be mad about that? No one. Because New Yorkers understand there are levels to this. And if there's just simply a better player that's in front of you and he deserves the chance and deserves the role, he's going to get the chance and the role. Deuce McBride has put in that work. How do you think he would feel if all of his minutes just got undercut from him? That's not going to happen because, again, I think in training camp, not only is Kolek going to show out, but Deuce McBride is going to show out. Have you all forgotten where this man has been ever since his toe healed? He has been in the sanctuary. That's a basketball workout retreat where you go to work on your game. Emmanuel Quickly used to be there. We saw how IQ's game developed and elevated, right? We don't think the same thing can happen for Deuce. Is Deuce done improving? Deuce is not done improving, ladies and gentlemen. And Deuce McBride might be the X factor for the Knicks off the bench. Nobody wants to talk about that, though. I love Kolek. And in maybe a year or two, this conversation about Kolek getting legit minutes will be a real conversation. Right now, it's an expected conversation because you have to give credit to the roster we just created. We don't have a roster that quickly created. We don't have a roster that's that bad, that's going to tank, that we're going to be a 10th seed. We don't have that roster. We have a roster that we can have an argument to be the number 1 seed. I'm sorry. Rookies don't play heavy minutes on number 1 seed rosters. That's just how it is. It's just that way. And if he does play minutes, that's because he's earned it. And I won't mind it at all. Either way, though, we have to understand this is something to expect. Shout out to Fred Katz, though. He didn't sugarcoat it. He gave it to us legit and exactly the way you expected it. Again, one of my favorite articles I've read from Fred Katz recently in his recent mailbag, because he gave us all this information directly, didn't sugarcoat anything, and let us know exactly what it is. Given the roster, he's likely not going to get heavy minutes, if at all any minutes. That sucks for Kolek. It sucks for fans of Kolek, but it's understandable when you look at the roster. So I see the chat gang. I see you guys going off. I understand some of you are happy with that. You're okay with that. Some of you guys want other rookies to potentially get time. But again, wanting something and understanding what's realistic, two different things. I want a lot of things. I want Jalen Brunson to be MVP next season. And maybe that happens, but I don't expect it to happen. If you enjoyed these clips from the live show, be sure to subscribe to the channel and have notifications turned on so you don't miss any new episodes or when we go live. Thanks for watching, Knick fans, and until next time, peace.